The Outsiders explores many universal themes, such as family, loyalty, coming of age, and bravery. But one of the most prolific themes is death. Several deaths are mentioned throughout the story, some of which took place before its beginning, and three that happen as the story goes on. But the most significant death that occurs is Dally Winston's, as it's one of the deaths that profoundly impacts Ponyboy Curtis the most. However, when I went to see the Broadway musical adaptation back in May, I was surprised at just how drastically Dally's death was changed. It's one of the few changes that I personally disagree with. I understand it was done that way to make the show seem less controversial, but it took away from the impact surrounding Dally's death and completely missed the point. But before I get into how the Broadway show changed Dally's death, I need to explain Dally's background from the novel. We really don't know much about him other than that he is described as ice cold and filled with hatred for the whole world. He grew up first on the streets of New York City and made his way through life constantly going to prison until he eventually made his way to Tulsa, where he met the Curtis brothers and the rest of their gang. The only one in the gang whom Dally managed to feel any genuine love and affection for was Johnny Cade, a neglected, abused boy who was Ponyboy's best friend. Dally is consistently shown to hate doing anything the legal way, and he displays an I don't care attitude toward everyone. He's a sexist, he's a bully, he's uncaring, he's a criminal, and he's just straight up mean to everyone. But there are also layers to him that can be explored. He has a certain amount of loyalty, he displays a capacity to care about Ponyboy and Johnny, and he's brave. So while he's an utterly unlikable piece of garbage, there are pieces of him that contrast with his angry, resentful demeanor. That's a big part of why his death impacts Ponyboy the most, but it's Johnny's death that triggers the chain reaction. After Johnny dies, Dally suddenly feels that the one good thing he ever had left in the world is gone. He doesn't see the point in living in a world where Johnny isn't, leading to him crying for the first time. Ponyboy realizes then and there that Johnny is the only person Dally genuinely loves. So for Dally to suddenly lose the one good thing he has left in the world, that's what breaks him. The first thing Dally decides to do is hold up a grocery store with an unloaded gun, which leads to the store clerk calling the police. Dally calls Derry from a phone booth, telling him he robbed a supermarket and to hide him from the cops. But the police get to Dally first, and when Dally runs at the cops with his gun raised, the police shoot him first, thinking that Dally's gun was loaded. After Ponyboy witnesses Dally's death, this is the last and final straw for him, and he ends up fainting from shock, having witnessed two of his best friends die in one night. Dally egging the cops on to shoot him is part of his characterization. He displays just how little he cares about life anymore by wanting to die suicide by cop because he spent all of his life running at trouble and practically begging the police to put him in handcuffs. Not because he ever had any remorse for the things he's ever done, but because he lived life wanting to show everyone that he didn't give a crap. He wanted everyone to know that he hated life and didn't see any point in living anyway, so why did it matter if he constantly went to jail? The cops at that point were so quick to kill him because they panicked, thinking the gun was loaded. Naturally, they were going to panic and instinctually do what they felt at that moment was right. Plus, it was Dallas Winston, a young man who had a history of being a criminal, someone they've hauled into the station more than once and even had a profile on because of how many times he'd been arrested. For them to react and shoot him dead after seeing him pull a gun on them, that shouldn't come as a surprise to the reader. So that was why I was shocked by the bold decision of the playwrights not to have Dally die suicide by cop in the musical, but rather have him run in front of a moving train. As a reader of the original story and a viewer of the movie, I thought the whole point of Dally's death was to scream to the entire world how little he cared. His jumping in front of a moving train doesn't send the same message as having him get shot dead by the police. choice. But maybe the racial swapping by casting a black actor to play Dally might have had something to do with that, but at the same time, that result would have remained the exact same way had the actor playing Dally been white. You're going to get the exact same end result from the play because that's the way the play was written, regardless of who is playing Dally up on that stage. Plus, according to the source material, the story still takes place in the 1960s, a time when racial tensions were still high and people were still segregated based on the color of their skin. But in the outsider's case, the characters are segregated based on social class and who has money and who doesn't. Still, the change made to Dally's death, for me, wasn't positive. I don't think having Dally jump in front of a moving train leaves the same reaction. And I also disagreed with having all the other side characters in the story be in the hospital room to witness Johnny's death. That was supposed to be an intimate moment between Ponyboy, Dally, and Johnny. So to have the rest of the gang there, it takes away from the shock the gang feels when they learn that Johnny died. When they hear it from Ponyboy, the impact is much more substantial. And that's the beginning of Ponyboy falling into a depression by the end of the story. Therefore, I'm going to say this. I think that the way the playwrights wrote Dally Winston's death in The Outsiders musical is not as impactful as the original source material. Having Dally jump in front of that train doesn't display his lack of care for the world, and it doesn't help enhance his character development long after his death. Compared to watching it in the movie, I think that Dally's death in the play completely missed the point of what it was supposed to represent. That being said, the musical was beautiful. I thought that the music was phenomenal, and I thought for the most part, the story was very true to the book, and the script even added things that enhanced the story further, like Ponyboy explaining to Cherry how his parents died, and Cherry describing her home life to him. The only part of the story that I disagreed with was the way Dally's death was handled, but other than that, the show is solid, and I highly recommend that fans of the movie and the book go see it, because I found it to be a beautiful, modern interpretation of one of the very first YA novels of the 20th century. Thank you for watching. If you're brand new, be sure to subscribe and ring that bell for all notifications. Also, be sure to leave a like and comment down below. All links will be in the description. God bless, happy viewing, and have a nice day. See ya!